The first time Emily saw Ethan again, she was balancing a tray of coffee cups and trying not to think about the rent. The morning rush at the Cornerstone Café was in full swing, and the bell above the door had just chimed for the third time in as many minutes. Emily's hair was pulled back in a messy bun, her apron was already dusted with flour, and her mind was running through a checklist of everything she needed to do before noon. She didn't notice him at first, not until she reached table 3. Table 3 was always her favorite. It sat by the window, catching the softest light in the mornings, and it was just far enough from the counter that she could take a breath between orders. Today, though, table 3 was occupied by a man with a familiar slouch, his hands wrapped around a mug as if he needed the warmth more than the caffeine. Emily's heart stuttered. She almost dropped the tray. Ethan! She hadn't seen him in nearly 2 years, not since the night everything fell apart, not since she'd told him she couldn't do it anymore, couldn't keep waiting for him to choose her over his own ghosts. She'd built a new life since then, or at least the scaffolding of one. She had her son, Jamie, and her job, and a tiny apartment with a leaky faucet and a view of the alley. She had peace, or something like it. She didn't need Ethan. She told herself that so many times it had almost become true. But there he was, in her cafe, at her table, looking older and thinner, but still Ethan. The same crooked smile, the same eyes that always seemed to be searching for something just out of reach. He looked up as she approached, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. "Hey, Em," he said, his voice softer than she remembered. She set the tray down carefully, forcing her hands to be steady. "Ethan, I didn't expect to see you here." He shrugged, glancing out the window. "Didn't expect to be here, just passing through." Emily nodded, her mind erasing. She wanted to ask why he was here, what he wanted, if he knew how hard she'd worked to move on. But the cafe was busy and she had customers waiting. She pasted on her best professional smile. "Can I get you anything else?" He hesitated, then shook his head. "Just the coffee, thanks." She turned away, feeling his gaze linger on her back. She told herself it didn't matter. She was done with Ethan. She had to be. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of orders and small talk. Emily moved through her routine with practiced efficiency, but her thoughts kept drifting back to table 3. Every time she glanced over, Ethan was still there, nursing his coffee, staring out at the street as if he was waiting for something, or someone. She tried to ignore him, but it was impossible. The past had a way of sitting down at your favorite table and refusing to leave. At noon, the rush died down. Emily wiped down the counter, her hands moving automatically. She glanced at the clock. Jamie would be out of school in 3 hours. She needed to pick up groceries, pay the electric bill, maybe call her mom if she had the energy. She didn't have time for old wounds. But when she looked up, Ethan was still there. The cafe was nearly empty now, just a couple of regulars and a woman with a laptop in the corner. Emily took a deep breath and walked over to table 3. "You planning to stay all day?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light. Ethan looked up, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Maybe. It's quiet here." She crossed her arms, leaning against the back of the chair across from him. "You never liked quiet." He shrugged. "Maybe I do now." They stood in silence for a moment, the kind that used to be comfortable between them. Now it felt heavy, full of things unsaid. "Why are you here, Ethan?" Emily asked finally. He looked down at his hands, tracing the rim of the mug with his thumb. "I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd see if you were still here." She raised an eyebrow. And you are." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "You looked it, Em." She snorted. "I look tired." He smiled, and for a moment she saw the boy she'd fallen in love with all those years ago. The one who used to make her laugh until she cried, who'd promised her the world before life got in the way. "I missed you," he said quietly. Emily felt something twist in her chest. She wanted to tell him to leave, to say she didn't care, that she was better off without him, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she just shook her head. You can't just show up after all this time and expect everything to be the same, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I know, Ethan replied. I don't expect anything. I wanted to see you. Emily glanced around the cafe, suddenly aware of how exposed she felt. She straightened, forcing herself to put distance between them. I have work to do. If you need anything else, let me know. She walked away, her heart pounding. She told herself it didn't matter. She was done with Ethan. She had to be. But as she wiped down the counter, she couldn't help glancing back at table 3. And when she saw the look on Ethan's face, hopeful, uncertain, a little bit lost, she wondered if maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as done as she thought. Emily tried to lose herself in the rhythm of the cafe, but the day felt off-kilter, as if someone had nudged the world a few degrees sideways. She kept her hands busy, refilling sugar jars, stacking clean mugs, checking the pastry case, but her mind kept circling back to Ethan. She remembered the way he used to make her feel, safe, seen, like she was the only person in the room. She remembered, too, the way he'd left, the empty promises, the nights she'd waited for a call that never came. She'd built walls around her heart since then, brick by careful brick. But now, with Ethan sitting at table 3, she could feel those walls trembling. The bell above the door jingled and Emily looked up, grateful for the distraction. Mrs. Alvarez, one of the regulars, shuffled in, her cane tapping against the tile. Emily greeted her with a smile, poured her usual chamomile tea, and listened as the older woman recounted her morning, a story about her cat and a missing sock. Emily laughed in all the right places, but her eyes kept drifting to the window, where Ethan's reflection was faintly visible in the glass. He was still there, still waiting. When Mrs. Alvarez left, Emily found herself with a rare moment of quiet. She glanced at the clock. 2 hours until Jamie's school let out. She could finish her shift, pick him up, and pretend this day had been like any other. She could pretend Ethan had never walked back into her life. But when she looked at table 3, she saw Ethan watching her, his expression open and vulnerable in a way she'd almost forgotten. She sighed, wiped her hands on her apron, and walked over. "Do you want a refill?" she asked, nodding at his empty mug. He hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, thanks." She poured the coffee, the silence between them stretching. Finally, Ethan spoke. "How's Jamie?" Emily stiffened, surprised. "He's good, growing too fast. He's in 2nd grade now." Ethan smiled, a little sadly. "He must be getting big." "He is." She hesitated, then added, "He asks about you sometimes." Ethan's eyes flickered. "I'm sorry I haven't been around." Emily shrugged, trying to keep her voice steady. "You made your choice." He looked down, shame coloring his features. "I know. I was a mess, Em. After my dad died, I didn't know how to be there for anyone, least of all you and Jamie." She wanted to tell him that she understood, that grief could hollow a person out and leave them lost. But she also remembered the nights she'd held Jamie as he cried, asking where Ethan had gone. She remembered the anger, the loneliness, the way she'd had to become both mother and father overnight. "You could have called," she said quietly. "I know." He looked up, his eyes shining. "I wanted to 100 times, but I thought you'd be better off without me." Emily shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "You don't get to decide that for us." He nodded, accepting the rebuke. "You're right. I'm sorry." They sat in silence, the weight of the past pressing down on them. Emily glanced at the clock again. She needed to get back to work, to put space between herself and the ache in Ethan's eyes. But before she could move, Ethan spoke again. "I'm not here to make things harder for you, Em. I wanted to see you, to see Jamie if you'll let me." Emily's heart twisted. She wanted to say no, to protect herself and her son from more disappointment. But she also remembered the way Jamie's face lit up when he talked about Ethan, the way he clung to the hope that his father might come back. I don't know, she said honestly. It's not just up to me. Jamie's been through a lot. Ethan nodded. I get it. I'll wait. However long it takes. Emily studied him, searching for the man she'd loved beneath the lines of regret and sorrow. She saw glimpses, flickers of warmth, of humor, of the stubborn hope that had once drawn her in. She wondered if people could really change, if time and pain could carve out space for something new. The bell above the door jingled again, and Emily turned to see her boss, Greg, walking in. He gave her a nod, then glanced at Ethan, his brow furrowing. Everything okay here? Greg asked, his tone casual but protective. Yeah, Emily replied quickly, just catching up with an old friend. Greg nodded, but his eyes lingered on Ethan. Let me know if you need anything. Ethan offered a polite smile. I'm just finishing my coffee. Greg retreated to the back, and Emily felt a flush of embarrassment. She didn't want anyone to see her like this, caught between the past and the present, unsure of which way to turn. She looked at Ethan, her voice softening. I have to get back to work. He nodded, standing up. I should go. He reached into his wallet, pulling out a few bills and leaving them on the table. As he turned to leave, he paused, looking back at her. Thanks for the coffee, Em, and for talking to me. She nodded, unable to find the words. She watched as he walked out the door, the bell chiming softly behind him. She stood there for a moment, staring at the empty chair, feeling the echo of his presence lingering in the air. She told herself it was over. She was done with Ethan. She had to be. But as she cleared table 3, she found a note tucked beneath the mug. Her name, written in Ethan's familiar handwriting. If you ever want to talk, you know where to find me. I'm not running anymore. Emily folded the note, slipping it into her pocket. She didn't know what she would do. She only knew that something had shifted, and the walls she'd built around her heart were no longer as strong as they once were. The afternoon passed in a haze. Emily finished her shift, picked up Jamie from school, and listened as he chattered about his day, the spelling test he'd aced, the soccer game at recess, the new kid who'd brought a pet frog for show and tell. She smiled and nodded, but her mind kept drifting back to Ethan, to the note, to the possibility of something she'd thought she'd lost forever. That night, after Jamie was asleep, Emily sat at the kitchen table, the note unfolded in front of her. She traced the letters with her finger, remembering the way Ethan used to write her little messages on napkins, on the back of receipts, on the steamed-up bathroom mirror. She remembered the promises, the laughter, the dreams they'd once shared. She also remembered the pain, the nights she'd cried herself to sleep, the mornings she'd woken up alone. She remembered the way Ethan had disappeared, leaving her to pick up the pieces. She didn't know if she could trust him again. She didn't know if she wanted to. But as she sat there, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator, she realized she wasn't as certain as she'd once been. Maybe people could change. Maybe forgiveness was possible. Maybe table 3 wasn't just a place for endings, but for new beginnings. Emily folded the note and put it away. She turned off the light, climbed into bed, and let herself hope, just a little, that tomorrow might bring something different. The next morning, Emily woke before her alarm, sunlight creeping through the blinds and painting stripes across her bedroom wall. For a moment, she lay still, listening to the quiet. Jamie was still asleep in the next room, his soft breathing a comfort she never took for granted. She thought about the day ahead, packing lunches, the morning rush at the cafe, bills to pay, errands to run. But beneath the routine, a restless energy buzzed in her chest. She knew the reason, even if she didn't want to admit it. Ethan's note was still on her nightstand, folded neatly, as if it might vanish if she left it out of sight. She reached for it, running her thumb over the creased paper. She wondered if he'd meant what he wrote, if he really wasn't running anymore. She wondered if she was brave enough to find out. By the time Jamie woke, rubbing sleep from his eyes and asking for pancakes, Emily had made up her mind. She would go to work, she would do her job, and if Ethan came back, she would talk to him. Not about the past, not yet, but about Jamie, about the present, about what might be possible if they both tried. The cafe was quiet when she arrived, the air still heavy with the scent of yesterday's pastries. She tied on her apron, set out the chairs, and started the coffee. As the morning sun climbed higher, the regulars trickled in. Alvarez with her crossword, Mr. Patel with his newspaper, a pair of college students hunched over laptops. Emily moved through her routine, her hands steady, her mind focused. She didn't let herself look at table 3. But at 9:17, the bell above the door chimed, and she knew before she turned that it was Ethan. He hesitated in the doorway, scanning the room, then made his way to table 3. He sat with the same careful posture as yesterday, as if he was afraid to take up too much space. Emily took a breath, wiped her hands on her apron, and walked over. "Back again?" she asked, keeping her tone light. Ethan smiled, a little sheepish. Couldn't resist the coffee. She poured him a cup, setting it in front of him. "It's on the house." He looked up, surprised. "You don't have to do that." "I know, but I want to." They sat in silence for a moment, the clatter of dishes and the low hum of conversation filling the space between them. Finally, Ethan spoke. "I meant what I wrote, Em. I'm not running anymore. I want to be here. For you. For Jamie." Emily studied him, searching for the truth in his eyes. She saw the same vulnerability as yesterday, but also something steadier, a resolve she hadn't seen before. "Jamie's missed you," she said quietly. "He still keeps the baseball glove you gave him by his bed." Ethan's face softened. "I'd like to see him, if that's okay." Emily hesitated. She wanted to protect Jamie, to shield him from more disappointment, but she also knew that Jamie deserved the chance to know his father, to see if things could be different this time. "I'll talk to him. No promises, but I'll ask." Ethan nodded, gratitude shining in his eyes. "Thank you." The morning passed in a blur. Emily moved through her tasks, but her mind kept drifting to Ethan, to the possibility of letting him back in. She remembered the good times, the laughter, the late-night talks, the way he used to make her feel like she could do anything. She remembered the bad times, too, the arguments, the silences, the way he'd pulled away when she needed him most. She didn't know if she could trust him, but she wanted to try. At noon, she called her mom and asked if she could pick up Jamie from school. She needed time to think, to figure out what to say. Her mom agreed, her voice warm with understanding. After her shift, Emily walked to the park, the note from Ethan tucked in her pocket. She sat on a bench beneath a maple tree, watching the world go by. She thought about the life she'd built, the routines, the sacrifices, the small joys. She thought about Jamie, about the way he looked at her with so much trust, so much hope. She thought about Ethan, about the way he'd looked at her across table 3, as if he was seeing her for the first time in years. She pulled out her phone and typed a message. "Jamie's been asking about you. If you want to see him, we can meet at the park tomorrow after school. No promises, no expectations, just a visit." She hesitated, her thumb hovering over the send button. Then she pressed it, her heart pounding. Ethan replied almost immediately. "Thank you, Em. I'll be there. Whatever you need, I'll do it." That night, Emily told Jamie that his dad wanted to see him. Jamie's eyes lit up, a mixture of excitement and nervousness. "Really? He's coming back?" Emily hugged him, holding him close. "He wants to try. We'll see how it goes, okay?" Jamie nodded, his face serious. "Okay, Mom." The next day, Emily left work early and took Jamie to the park. The air was crisp, the trees just starting to bud with the promise of spring. Jamie clutched his baseball glove, his other hand gripping Emily's tightly. Ethan was already there, sitting on a bench near the playground. He stood when he saw them, his hands shoved in his pockets, his posture uncertain. Jamie hesitated, then ran to him. Ethan knelt, opening his arms, and Jamie crashed into him, hugging him fiercely. Emily watched, her heart aching with hope and fear. "Hey, buddy," Ethan said, his voice thick. "I missed you." Jamie pulled back, studying his father's gaze. "Are you staying this time?" Ethan nodded, tears in his eyes. I want to, if you'll let me. Jamie grinned, the gap in his front teeth making him look younger than his years. Can we play catch? Ethan laughed, wiping his eyes. Yeah, we can play catch. Emily sat on the bench, watching as Ethan and Jamie tossed the ball back and forth. She saw the way Ethan encouraged Jamie, the way he cheered when Jamie caught a tricky throw, the way he listened when Jamie talked about school and soccer and his favorite superhero. She saw the way Jamie's face lit up, the way he ran to his father without hesitation. For the first time in a long time, Emily let herself believe that maybe things could be different. Maybe people could change. Maybe forgiveness was possible. After an hour, Jamie ran off to the playground, leaving Ethan and Emily alone on the bench. They sat in silence, watching Jamie climb the jungle gym. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly, "for giving me another chance." Emily nodded, her voice soft. "Don't thank me yet. This isn't easy for any of us." "I know," Ethan replied, "but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." They sat together, the afternoon sun warming their faces, the sound of Jamie's laughter ringing through the air. Emily felt the walls around her heart begin to crumble, just a little. As the sun dipped lower, Jamie ran back, breathless and grinning. "Can Dad come to dinner?" Emily looked at Ethan, searching his face for any sign of doubt. She saw only hope. "Yeah," she said, "he can come to dinner." They walked home together, the three of them, and for the first time in years, Emily felt like maybe, just maybe, they could be a family again. Dinner that night was nothing fancy. Spaghetti with jarred sauce, garlic bread from the freezer, a salad Emily threw together with whatever was left in the fridge. But as they sat around the small kitchen table, Jamie chattering about his day and Ethan listening with rapt attention, it felt like a feast. The apartment, usually so quiet in the evenings, was alive with laughter and the clatter of forks against plates. Emily watched the two of them, her heart full and aching all at once. After dinner, Jamie insisted on showing Ethan his latest drawing, a superhero with a cape made from a dish towel and a mask colored in with blue marker. Ethan admired it, asking questions about the character's powers, and Jamie beamed with pride. Emily cleaned up the dishes, listening to their voices from the living room, letting herself enjoy the simple, ordinary chaos of it all. When Jamie finally went to bed, Ethan lingered in the doorway of his room, watching as Emily tucked him in. Jamie hugged his mother, then looked up at his father. "Will you be here tomorrow?" he asked, his voice small. Ethan knelt beside the bed, brushing Jamie's hair back from his forehead. "If you want me to be, I'll be here, I promise." Jamie nodded, satisfied, and closed his eyes. Emily turned off the light, leaving the door cracked just enough for the hallway glow to slip in. She and Ethan stood in the hallway, the hush of the apartment settling around them. "Thank you," Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper, "for letting me be here, for trusting me with him." Emily leaned against the wall, arms folded. "I'm not sure I trust you yet, Ethan, but I want to, for Jamie's sake. For mine, maybe." He nodded, accepting her honesty. "I know I have a lot to prove. I know I hurt you. I can't change the past, but I want to be better. I want to be the man you and Jamie deserve." She looked at him, searching his face for the truth. She saw the lines of regret, the hope, the fear. She saw the man she'd loved and the man he was trying to become. "People don't change overnight," she said quietly, "but maybe they can change, a little at a time." Ethan smiled, a small, hopeful thing. "I'm willing to try, if you'll let me." They stood in silence, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Finally, Emily spoke. "I don't know what happens next. I don't know if we can ever go back to what we were, but maybe we can start over, not for the past, but for the future." Ethan reached for her hand, tentative, as if afraid she might pull away. She let him take it, their fingers intertwining, the contact warm and real. "I'd like that," he said, "a fresh start." They stood together in the quiet hallway, the sounds of the city drifting in through the window, the promise of something new settling between them. Emily felt the last of her walls begin to fall, replaced by something softer, something that felt a lot like hope. In the weeks that followed, Ethan became a regular presence in their lives. He showed up for school pickups, helped with homework, learned how to braid Jamie's hair on crazy hair day, and even volunteered to coach the Little League team. He and Emily took things slow. Coffee after work, walks in the park, long talks late into the night. There were awkward moments, old wounds that flared up, but there was laughter too, and forgiveness, and the slow, steady rebuilding of trust. One Saturday morning, as they sat together at table 3 in the cafe, Jamie between them, coloring a new superhero, Emily realized how much had changed. The table that had once been a place of endings was now a place of beginnings. She looked at Ethan, saw the way he watched Jamie with pride, the way he smiled at her with gratitude and love, and she knew she'd made the right choice. Life wasn't perfect. There were still bills to pay, worries about the future, moments of doubt, but there was also joy and family and the knowledge that sometimes, when you least expect it, the past can walk back into your life and offer you a second chance. As the morning sun spilled through the window, Emily reached across the table and squeezed Ethan's hand. He looked at her, his eyes shining, and she smiled, a real, unguarded smile. "Thank you for coming back," she whispered. Ethan squeezed her hand in return. "Thank you for letting me." Jamie looked up from his drawing, grinning. "Are you guys gonna kiss now?" Emily laughed, the sound bright and free. "Maybe later, kiddo." They sat together at table 3, the 3 of them, and for the first time in a long time, Emily felt whole. She knew there would be challenges ahead, but she also knew they would face them together. And as she watched Jamie draw, Ethan smiling beside her, she realized that sometimes the best stories aren't the ones you plan. They're the ones that find you when you're brave enough to open the door.